Hi everybody, welcome to number 9, cactus number 9. My camera for some reason is in reverse, so this lettering around here is in reverse, but anyway, today we're going to do a lithop. That's what this says, but in reverse, which is it's known more popularly as a living stone, and it's a succulent from South Africa. So we're just going to do a little bowl with a small stand on it, and then around the top like this. And then lithops are tiny little leafy structures, succulent leafy structures. So they're quite squidgy if you touch them, but they're one of my absolute favourites. So they build up like this. Some of them are singular and some of them grow in groups, and they come in a variety of colours, shapes, sizes. Check them out on something like Pinterest. They're amazing little structures, and they're really, again, they're another really easy to keep plant, and they also last forever. And you can pick each one of these individual bodies and make new plants out of them. So they're really satisfying little plants to manage at home. They do need to be kept indoors, although they do grow in sort of Arctic cold conditions in the winter, but they don't like to be wet. So this country, they don't like to be kept outside, this country being Wales. However, if you are from Japan or wherever, then you know your climate might accept them outside. Okay, so we are going to paint the lithops themselves. These are the lithops, in a indigo colour. You might have an indigo, you might have a phthalo blue in your set. These are the sort of really inky blues here. So it's a nice, strong, powerful blue colour. And we're just going to go in and we're going to paint the whole structure in this blue. Now, if you look online on Google or Pinterest or whatever you use, whatever search you use, you'll see that these things come in a variety of colours. So if you wanted to do this in multiple colours, then you could. Again, you don't need to follow my colour palette. I'm trying to do a different colour palette every day so that you get used to the colours and what they are and the names and things like that. Okay, so there we are. Lovely, beautiful blue colour. Really good for sort of late evening skies and things like that, if you want to have a go at using it in a landscape or something like that. And now we're going to paint the pot, because there's a gap between the blue and the pot where the soil is. We're going to paint the pot, and we can do that quite safely without having to dry it off. And for that, I'm going to use a lemon yellow, which is this one. And the lemon yellow is very different to a cadmium yellow, which is the one sitting next to it, in that it's a quite cold yellow. So again, you need to be careful what you use it for. So for example, on a sunflower, you wouldn't necessarily use, although they do have sunflowers this colour these days, but a traditional sunflower would probably only use the cadmium yellows, which are the warmer yellows. This one's good for Welsh poppies and buttercups and things like that. Things that need a little bit earlier, basically earlier flowers, tend to have more of the lemon yellow in them than the cadmium yellow. And I've just added a little bit of extra colour on the left into the mix, just to make that bowl feel a little bit rounded. And underneath, ideally, because the little stand here would be in shadow, you could take a little bit of your cadmium yellow and just put that in, just to suggest a shadow. You could even put a little bit of cadmium on the left here to suggest more of a shadow on that pot. Okay, so here we go. Now hopefully that would be dry, but actually that is not dry. That is, but that's not. So I wouldn't put, let me just get my hairdryer. I wouldn't put the colour in between just yet if it wasn't dry. So I'm just going to dry this off really quickly. Okay, and now we can take our detailed brush and use something soil coloured. Quite often when you get cacti, they won't be sitting on soil. They often are in soil, they're planted in soil, but around the top you might find those grit. Oh, see, now is that going to run? That's not quite dry yet, can you see? So I'm just going to be careful with this. So yeah, you could paint some grit on the surface rather than soil if you wanted a little bit more interest. Just wipe that brush off a bit. I put a bit too much paint on there. So in we go. Now if you make a mistake like that and you want to get rid of it, if you take a clean brush and then just dry it off slightly on a paper towel or a piece of cloth like I've got, and then you can just sort of lift off that colour, but just make sure that your brush is what they call semi-dry, and then you won't get any weird marks happening, because in watercolour, if you've got wet and then it hits really dry paper, it forms these little things called cauliflowers. They're a bit like cloud forms, and that's what happens if you put extra wet on there and it was too wet. It would move towards here and then it would form these little, and sometimes they're quite nice, you know, like for example if they're in the sky, they can be quite nice, but in this instance we want that to be flat. I'm just going to have a slurp of coffee. Okay, so let's make this. We've got a little bit of shadow here. If you remember, we can use that clean dried off brush again. You might not see this very well because this yellow is actually quite pale. But if you go back in, each time you make a mark, just dry your brush off again. Clean it and dry it. So you can do this while it's still wet, and you can do it also while it's dry. It's a little bit harder to get off when it's dried off, but you can see that that colour is lifting off there to reveal a highlight. I don't know whether you can see that. Yeah, you can. So in the same sense, you can do that with your lithops. If you wanted to, you could just go in and lift a little highlight. Remember where the light is coming from. It's coming from above. So it would be in particular places and not in others. So think about where your light is coming from. So I think the light is coming from the right hand side. I just put that on the right hand side. So I'm just going to lift off some little marks off the right hand side. Actually, because this camera's in reverse, you're seeing it on the left. So sorry about that. Okay, so there's the little highlights lifted, and now I'm just going to take some thick black. So I'm into my black palette here. I haven't got very much water on it. I think we've got 1 minute left. And what you're going to do is you're just going to put some little sort of squiggly marks in on top of these, of the surface, just little squiggles. And if you look at the lithops online, or if you've got a book, you'll see that they have these little scratchy marks on the surface of their stalks. So really random, don't do them evenly, just randomly paint those in. A little bit more, I know we're on 10 minutes. Okay, so go and have a look at these lithops, they're absolutely lovely. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye for now.